Hello everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Our story today is a gripping survival thriller that dives deep into the heart of danger. It follows a group of people whose peaceful flight turns into a nightmare over the vast Pacific Ocean, as the waters beneath them hide unseen threats. The real question is, how long can they survive? The journey begins at the airport, where a Vista Airlines flight is ready to depart from Los Angeles to Los Cabos. One of the passengers is Ava, the daughter of a powerful politician. She's traveling with her friend Kyle and her boyfriend Jed, excited for a relaxing vacation. But things get tense when Ava's childhood friend Brandon also joins them. Jed doesn't take it well, especially since this was meant to be a trip for just the three of them. Ava's father, being protective, never lets her travel alone, so Brandon was asked to come along for her safety. Ava didn't mind, though. She's known Brandon since they were kids and feels comfortable with him around. As they board the plane, Ava seats Brandon in the front and heads to the back to sit with Jed and Kyle. On the same flight, a little girl named Rosa is traveling with her grandparents. When Rosa accidentally drops her teddy bear, Ava kindly picks it up and hands it back, sparking a sweet connection between them. The flight soon takes off, and flight attendant Denny begins walking passengers through the safety instructions, fulfilling her duty with care. Kyle, meanwhile, can't resist poking fun at her. Ava, however, seems uneasy. Something about this flight just doesn't feel right to her. As the plane flies over the Pacific Ocean, turbulence hits suddenly. The aircraft starts to shake, and nervous whispers spread among the passengers. The pilot announces that a flock of birds collided with the plane, but urges everyone to stay calm. Just moments later, Rosa notices flames emerging from the engine. Panic begins to set in as the vibrations intensify. Then, out of nowhere, a large piece of metal crashes into the plane, tearing off a section and letting violent winds rush inside. Because of the massive hole in the aircraft, several passengers are pulled straight out into the open sky. Within moments, the entire plane crashes into the Pacific Ocean and begins sinking rapidly into its dark, endless depths. Ava is completely shaken, unable to process the horror unfolding around her. Water starts rushing in from the front of the aircraft, and passengers begin to drown one by one. After sinking for a while, the wreck finally settles on a somewhat stable platform deep underwater. At this point, only Ava, Kyle, Jed, and flight attendant Denny are left at the back of the plane. They fear that everyone sitting in the front didn't survive. But just then, little Rosa emerges from the front, followed by Brandon, who is struggling to carry Rosa's grandmother with him. Her condition looks serious. Without wasting a second, Denny begins performing CPR on her, as her body had taken in too much water. When she doesn't respond, everyone fears the worst, until suddenly, she gasps for air and slowly regains consciousness. As soon as she wakes up, the elderly woman asks about her husband, but sadly, he didn't make it. The emotional weight of the moment is heavy on everyone. Brandon, trying to stay calm, asks Denny to get the oxygen cylinders from the plane, hoping they might help. But when Denny checks, all the available cylinders turn out to be empty. Frustrated, Denny can't help but feel angry at her crew for the oversight. But right now, they have to focus on surviving. Jed then remembers seeing a passenger up front holding a working oxygen cylinder. Hearing this, Brandon decides to go retrieve it. Before he leaves, Rosa's grandmother gently asks him to also bring back her husband's cap, something she wants to keep with her as a final memory of the man she loved. Brandon bravely heads to the front section of the sunken plane. He manages to retrieve both the oxygen cylinder and the grandfather's cap. But just as he's about to turn back, a sudden attack leaves him stunned. A tiger shark appears out of nowhere. Because of the breach in the plane's structure, the shark had entered through the open hole. Meanwhile, Ava anxiously waits for Brandon's return. Moments later, he makes it back and hands over the supplies. He reassures Ava not to panic and tells her that a rescue team will arrive soon. But before hope can settle in, the shark strikes again, this time dragging Brandon into the water right in front of everyone's eyes. The group is frozen in shock. No one can understand how something so terrifying happened so fast. Above the ocean, a rescue helicopter starts scanning the waters for survivors, but they see nothing. The entire plane is now deep beneath the surface, invisible from the sky. Inside the wreckage, Rosa's grandmother, who we now learn was a nurse, tends to Kyle's broken arm, wrapping it carefully to stop the bleeding. Suddenly, the group feels another intense vibration run through the aircraft. Panic sets in again. Ava tries to stay strong and reminds everyone of Brandon's words, that help is on its way. She urges them to wait just a little longer. But there's another problem. The plane, which had settled on an underwater rock base, is now starting to shift. The wreck slides closer to the edge of the rocky ledge, letting in even more water. If the aircraft falls any further, they'll plunge into a depth where survival would be nearly impossible. They must escape. But how? Outside, the shark still waits, circling like a predator, sensing weakness. That's when Ava speaks up. They need a distraction. She says if they can divert the shark's attention and find enough scuba gear, they might have a chance. Most of the group is losing hope. Ava heads to the washroom and breaks down in tears, overwhelmed by fear and grief. Deep down, she isn't sure they'll survive either, but she knows one thing. If she doesn't give them hope now, everyone will lose their will to fight. And that would mean dying down here, with no one ever finding them. Meanwhile, the helicopter team is still searching for any trace of the missing plane. Then suddenly, a few broken parts of the aircraft float to the surface, confirming their fear that the plane has completely sunk. Acting quickly, they deploy 2 divers to investigate the area. Not long after, the divers reach the wreckage, and inside the plane, Rosa catches a glimpse of them approaching from a distance. A wave of hope sweeps through the survivors. Through the plane's window, one of the divers signals to them, assuring the group that help is finally here. But just as quickly as hope returns, it turns to horror. The passengers see something terrifying. A shark is swimming directly behind the diver. They try to warn him with frantic gestures, but it's too late. The shark strikes and kills him instantly. The second diver, who is inspecting the plane's entry hole, also becomes the shark's next victim. Witnessing both divers get attacked completely shatters the group's morale. Their chance at rescue seems to vanish once again. Desperate and shaken, Ava and Jed begin checking the gear the divers left behind. Suddenly, Jed slips and falls into the water, but as he tries to climb back up, a shark lunges and sinks its teeth into his leg. The group pulls him out, but not before the shark tears off one of his legs. Blood pours out as Rosa's grandmother tries to quickly bandage the wound, but the injury is too severe. Jed begins to lose consciousness from extreme blood loss and goes into shock. Ava stays beside him, holding his hand and telling him he'll be okay, that they'll get out of this alive. Meanwhile, Denny remembers there are some diving jackets stored in the luggage compartment, and the hatch to that area is still accessible through their air pocket. Without hesitation, Ava grabs a red torch and swims off to find the gear. When the torchlight suddenly disappears, panic spreads. Everyone fears Ava is gone too. But moments later, she emerges from the water carrying a scuba bag. Everyone cheers with relief. Inside the bag are only 4 jackets, not enough for the whole group. But it's a start. Sadly, before any plan can be made, Jed takes his final breath and passes away. Ava breaks down in tears, devastated by the loss of someone she once dreamed of building a future with, dreams that now feel completely shattered. Seeing Ava break down, Grandma gently comforts her. She reminds Ava that she's the strongest one in the group, the one everyone is depending on. Ava had already lost her mother at a young age, and now, within moments, she's lost Brandon and her boyfriend, Jed. That kind of pain could destroy anyone. As she tries to process everything, the plane shakes again. The part of the wreck that was barely clinging to the underwater rock is now breaking apart, crumbling under the crushing pressure of the sea. Time is running out. If they don't escape soon, they'll be dragged into the deep where no one survives. Taking control, Ava explains the plan. They'll need to create bubbles to distract the sharks. With only 2 oxygen tanks, they'll give one to Rosa and use the other sparingly among the rest. Their only way out is through the front hull of the plane. Once they make it out, they must activate the red switches on their jackets to float up to the surface. Kyle begins to panic. He's terrified and believes he can't do it. Ava tries to reassure him, while Grandma quietly tells Ava to look after Rosa. She's made peace with her own fate. She knows she'd only slow the others down. And so, with heartbreaking resolve, she chooses to stay behind. Right then, the front of the plane finally gives way and sinks deeper into the sea. Ava grabs Rosa and begins moving toward the exit. Danilo and Kyle follow close behind. But suddenly, Kyle freezes and retreats back into the air pocket, overwhelmed by fear. Danilo turns back to convince him. But out of nowhere, a shark strikes, killing Kyle instantly. Horrified, Danilo rushes back to Ava and Rosa. Before they leave, Ava and Danilo each take a breath from the last oxygen tank. Ava tells Danilo to guide Rosa to safety while she follows. The two exit the plane, pressing their red switches as they rise toward the surface. But just then, the wreck begins collapsing into the deep, dragging everything with it, including Ava. As she struggles to escape, a shark approaches her, closer, but Ava stays absolutely still. The shark pauses and then swims away. In that tense moment of calm, Ava manages to push herself out of the plane. But now, she has no oxygen left. As she swims toward the surface, her body gives out. She passes out mid-ascent. Silence. Then a gasp. Ava opens her eyes. She's at the surface. Disoriented, she calls out for Danilo and Rosa, but no one answers. Panic sets in. Did the shark get them too? But then, from above, the rescue chopper appears. They pull her up just in time. And to her surprise, Danilo and Rosa are already on board. The three reunite in tearful relief. When Rosa asks about her grandmother, Ava gently tells her the truth. Rosa is heartbroken, but also thankful. It's only because of Ava's courage and leadership that any of them survived. Without her, none of this would have been possible. And just like that, the nightmare ends. No Way Up takes us through a thrilling journey of survival, loss, and hope, reminding us that even when trapped in the darkest depths, the human spirit can still rise. So friends, how did you like this story? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the bell icon so you never miss any upcoming video. See you in the next one. Till then, stay healthy, stay safe,